I'm Brian Wiles, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can learn French on your own. And whether you're a total beginner or someone who's studied on and off, if you use the method and the tools that I'll be talking about, you can become a fluent French speaker in less than 2 years. And by the way, most of the resources that I'll be recommending are completely free. Si vous avez toujours rêvé de parler français couramment, c'est le moment de réaliser ce rêve. If you're a beginner, you really only need one thing to get started, either a textbook or an audio course. And it's up to you based on how you like to learn. If you want to use a textbook, I recommend this one, New French with Ease. It'll teach you all the fundamentals over the course of 100 chapters. And it also has a companion audio guide so you can start to develop an ear for the language. And you can actually download an older edition of this same textbook for free. You can check the description box below for that link. If, on the other hand, you're planning to learn French on the go, maybe during your commute or while you're exercising, something like that, you'll probably want to use an audio course. And your best free option here is Language Transfer, which is quite good, but there are only 40 lessons, so it's really more of an introduction to the language. I also highly recommend Pimsleur, which is far more comprehensive, but does require a monthly subscription. I'll put a link below for a 7-day free trial. You can see if it works for you. Now, at the end of this video, we'll talk about things like how you should study based on your current level. But first, let's talk about some other important resources that you should be using. So depending on where you're from, some sounds in French might be particularly challenging for you. If English is your native language, for example, the guttural R sound in words like rappeler or apprendre might be giving you a bit of a headache. But not to worry, that's totally normal. And this playlist from Learn French with Alexa actually goes in depth on how to create every single sound in the French language. It's free, it's fantastic, use it. And if you're looking for more of a general overview that covers French pronunciation at large, you should check out this video. It gives a brief breakdown of basically every aspect of French pronunciation, and it's well worth your time. Now let's be clear, you don't want to just learn French. You want to speak it with confidence, right? And to do that, you need to practice talking with real people. And here's the easiest way to do that. 1, use the link below and sign up for an account on Preply. 2, hire a native French-speaking tutor. And 3, do at least 2 private lessons every week. This is how I learned French, how I learned Mandarin, how I learned Arabic, one-on-one lessons with an expert tutor every week. You can master the basics on your own, but if you want to be fluent, you need a platform like Preply. Or, you can move to France, but those are your options. And don't forget, if you use the code Brian50, all caps, you'll get half off your first lesson. And the free version of this is to do a conversation exchange with someone who's learning your native language. You teach them, they teach you, the knowledge flows freely. If that sounds interesting to you, leave a comment below and let people know, because you might be able to find a conversation partner right here. So all the resources that we're talking about in this video will help you build your French vocabulary, but flashcards are the best way to do that as quickly as possible. And as you may know, I'm a big fan of the Anki platform, which is free on your desktop or through your mobile browser. And as you can see, this Anki deck will help you memorize the 5,000 most commonly used words in French. Now that might sound a little overwhelming, but all the words in this deck are sorted by frequency, so you can actually start practicing with it even if you're a complete beginner. If you've studied some French in the past and you already know a good number of words, I would suggest using the LTL series of Anki decks instead. They're also free, but they focus on learning whole phrases rather than individual words. And if you're a more experienced learner, you can also try using the Toucan extension for Google Chrome. This is a free browser extension that will automatically analyze any web page you're looking at and then translate a handful of words into French. The idea being that you can figure out what individual words mean by looking at the context in English. If you're looking for a more casual and open-ended way to build your vocab, it's an interesting option. If you're learning French on your own, podcasts are, in my opinion, the best way to build your skills over time. They'll develop your ear for the language and expand your vocabulary, and most importantly, they'll get you in the habit of expressing yourself like a native. So what should you be listening to? Well, if you're a complete beginner, Coffee Break French starts truly from zero and has over 15 seasons of content. It's slow, it's easy to understand, and the explanations are given in English. If you're a high beginner, I would recommend listening to Francais authentique, which is presented entirely in French, but the host, Joanne, speaks fairly slowly and uses very common vocabulary. InnerFrench is ever so slightly faster and covers topical issues about French society and culture. It makes for a great listen. And if you're at a solid intermediate level, I would suggest checking out Journal en France Facile from RFI. This is a news podcast, but it's designed for learners, so it's not overly technical. Beyond that, your options are basically limitless. And remember that you can always use the voice-to-text feature in Google Translate to get a quick definition of any word or phrase that you don't recognize. So you don't need to go out of your way to study French grammar, especially because the resources that I recommended in the core learning section of this video will answer most of your questions as you make progress through your course. But for when they don't, you can take a look at this playlist from The Perfect French with Dylane. Dylane gives clear explanations on basically every topic in French grammar, including all the things that tend to trip up learners: reflexives, direct and indirect objects, the subjunctive, etc., etc. And if you're looking for a book to have on hand, I recommend this one, Complete French Grammar. It's easy to understand and it's very comprehensive. You really don't need anything else. And finally, I want to bring your attention to 2 free learning programs that are sponsored by the French government. The first is Apprendre le Français, and this is a phenomenal website that has hundreds of short TV segments that each come with their own transcripts, vocab PDFs, and short quizzes. You can select your level from A1 to C2, and this is a great way to practice what you've learned and test yourself over time. And the second is Le Francais Facile, which is again from RFI, and this is a very similar platform, but instead of TV clips, it uses radio segments, so it's great for practicing on the go. Now, both these programs are excellent, but there's no real structure or progression, which is why I don't recommend using them as your primary learning resource. Okay, we've covered all the resources you need to learn French on your own. Now let's talk about how to build the right daily learning routine. First of all, set aside a fixed amount of time every day for learning French. Ideally, it should be at least 1 hour, but you can of course adjust the timing to suit your needs. If you're a total beginner, you should spend most of your time focusing on one of the main courses that we talked about earlier. But you can also study with either flashcards or a podcast like Coffee Break French. I also highly recommend that you do at least 1 lesson per week with an online tutor. It's very easy to develop bad habits early on, and a tutor will help you keep moving in the right direction. Once you've got a handle on the basics, you should divide your time evenly between your course, flashcards, and podcasts. This kind of even breakdown will consistently build your skills across the board, and you can of course supplement it with one of the free practice platforms that I mentioned. Now, after completing either all of New French with Ease or Pimsleur Level 5, you'll have around a B1 level of French comprehension. And from this point on, we really want to focus on listening, and the more you can do, the better. You can of course also continue to use flashcards, or if you prefer, you can make one of the practice programs a regular part of your learning routine. Beyond a high intermediate level, it's really all up to you. But in my experience, a mix of listening, speaking, and reading that looks something like this works best. But the most important thing is that you stick to your routine and put in at least an hour a day. And if you do that, you can absolutely become a fluent French speaker in 2 years, or even less if you really work for it. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and I wish you all the best with your French studies. À la prochaine.